But let's jump into the first story, and we'll talk about Joe Biden being president and this glorious image from Jacobin Magazine. Now, I'll tell you what I find particularly fascinating about this is Jacobin is like socialist, like their DSA. There's like communism. They get their name from the French Revolution, and they've put a cover out, and it's Joe Biden as Jesus with the sun behind his head, literally imagery of Jesus, and there are people below him like looking up and cheering and worshiping him. And there's angels filming and interviewing him. What are these people thinking?
This smacks of the French Revolution. This was what's his name's party?
Robespierre?
Yeah, Robespierre's party was the Jacobins. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but he actually they wanted to get rid of Christianity, and he portrayed himself as a deity and came down from the mountain. And he wanted to create a new religion around himself. And this is like I don't know if they don't know that, or if this is a sick joke, or if they really are like
maybe
zealous.
That's why they're doing it.
I mean, politicians are not supposed to be worshipped. They are servants. They're supposed to be serving the people. And I don't care if it's Joe Biden, QAnon, Donald Trump. Stop with this obsession with putting people above yourself and putting all of their responsibilities and all your failures and all your hopes into one person, and take some gosh darn personal responsibility for yourself, you mother.
We're supposed to be saying...
Too early.
We're supposed to be doing this. We're supposed to be sitting in chairs going... Joseph, come here, clean up this mess. We've hired you to take care of these problems. Instead, they create the problems and they do whatever they want. They enrich themselves. They're not solving the problems. I think we were talking about this before. The difference between a statesman and what we currently have with crony politicians. Someone who actually gets into office, who gets elected and says, I'm going to go in and focus on solving these problems for you. And then we have like one or two who actually do. But when you have a media ecosystem that is acting like Joe Biden is literally Jesus, then I don't see how we actually solve problems. Just to clarify my point, Joe Biden could do really horrible things and they don't care. But it's funny because they say the same thing about Donald Trump.
I'm kind of at a place where it's like, just let them have their fun. But I don't know. What were you going to say, Jack?
I was just going to say, how are you going to criticize Jesus?
Yeah, come on, man.
Setting him up to be untouchable. And then I'm also reminded, and I'm about ready to do this thing I hate where I say, what about? I'm also reminded about this summer when they were tearing down statues of Abraham Lincoln, where Lincoln's standing there and he's got his hand out and there's a slave on his knees breaking out of his chains and standing up. A joy like raptures face up to Abraham Lincoln. This cover with Biden as Jesus hovering above a black family in masks, looking up at him like he's God. That is no different.
Well, it is. I mean, I guess technically, the statue of Abraham Lincoln was paid for and built, organized by former slaves who were saying thank you to Lincoln. Now the leftists today got that statue removed. They actually removed it. It was in Boston. I can't believe it. They took it down.
There's one in D.C. they're trying to take down too. Same statue.
They're taking it down because they're like, it shows that black people were at one point slaves. And so they want to erase that. They don't want that idea to exist. So they got rid of it. It worked. Yeah. This is people worshiping Jesus Biden, who hasn't done anything.
Nothing.
What did he do?
He
defeated the
Tara
devil.
Reid up against the wall.
Yeah, he defeated the devil. There you go. The evil Trump.
Yep.
He may have performed what would they call it, sexual aggressive acts against Tara Reid
and children and
in his workplace.
It's really hard because I feel like the things they threw at Trump were preemptive defensive techniques. Like, you better accuse Trump of it before it comes at us.
Yes.
Because the Democrats are swimming in the corruption and the swamp. And so they're like, let's make sure everybody thinks Trump is corrupt for, like, the emoluments clause, for instance.
Matt,
Joe Biden sending his kid to China on Air Force 2.
That's
a bit different.
it's like we live in the Empire from Star Wars, and it's like people just want to just chill out and just accept it. You just want to be a citizen, man. You just want to reap the benefits of the Empire controlling all these planets and countries or whatever.
Well, so this is the thing. I was mentioning this earlier. I tweeted, I often wondered what pro-Empire propaganda would look like in the Star Wars universe. And it's because we have the entirety of DC locked down by the National Guard, many of whom have no idea why they're there. In order to get in, you've got to show your papers proving you have legitimate business. Why? because the storming of the Capitol. I don't think we need 25,000 troops locking down the entire Capitol.
No, as Adam Townsend said on Twitter, it's about imprinting history on people's brains. So that in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they just look back and they're like, oh, things must have been terrible. They had to have 25,000 troops in the Capitol. No one will remember the nuance. I've lived in D.C. for 30 years. I've been through a number of inaugurations. I have never once heard of incoming traffic shut down over the bridges coming into the city. The area that they blocked off is like,
they blocked off from Virginia into D.C.
It's like 20 times the size of anything that had ever been blocked off before. It was just mind-boggling. Troops marching. Troops marching down the streets.
Yeah, there's a famous meme going around right now with all the soldiers and the motorcade going through, and it says, "We defeated fascism." Yeah. And again, those images are extremely visceral for a reason. And we have to ask ourselves, why did we do this? Why did we lock down the capital of the United States under a military occupation when there was no protest? I'm hearing a lot of reports of no protesters at all being seen anywhere near even the vicinity of Washington, D.C. protesting Biden.
It was the opposite. Every single Trump forum was like, don't go to D.C. People were saying don't do it, don't go.
But on the mainstream media, we heard nonstop 24/7 breaking news coverage of threat assessments. It's going to get bad. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get bloody and dangerous. And what happened?
It was such a winning move, though, because now all they can say is there was a threat. We responded to the threat and we prevented it from happening.
Oh, yeah. Because we put the troops there.
Yeah, it's a winning move no matter what.
And think about the media narrative right now and how, say, Wikipedia works. They just take whatever op-ed, and I'm not serious. I'm serious. They take op-eds, and someone will say there was an insurrection. It's all about framing. So I'm sure if you now look at what the historians are writing, they're going to say there was an attempted insurrection by white supremacist terrorists. And then in 50 years, that's what they want everyone. History is written by the victors. They want everyone to look back at this day and say, Trump's army of white supremacists stormed the Capitol, planning to kill and kidnap members. And so the troops were deployed to protect the city, to prevent another insurrection. It was a trying time.
And they did it, and they successfully were able to fight it back. And it's only going to get worse from here as we're seeing very extreme language from individuals like John Brennan, the former CIA director that literally lied under oath about so many different things, whether spying or the Steele dossier. He came out today on the mainstream media and he said the Biden intelligence organizations are moving in, quote, laser-like fashion to uncover the Trump insurgency and the people who harbored it, including religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, nativists, and even libertarians.
This was libertarians?
He said yes. John Brennan said that Biden's intelligence agencies are moving in laser-like fashion against libertarians.
That's a political party.
Yes. That's why I tweeted the video out because I couldn't believe it because I saw people talking about it. But we have the former CIA director, the epitome of the deep state, talking about Biden going after libertarians now because of everything that happened.
The nativist thing was particularly interesting to me.
Yes.
They're making it now that if you oppose immigration in any way, you're an ist of some sort. And they're making nativist like racist. So I was listening. I didn't do a 1 p.m. segment today because I had to watch the inauguration. And that was happening at the same time I normally, produce and record. And I remember when Joe Biden mentioned, rejecting the hate of nativists. And I was like, it's a really interesting choice of words. Now people who are like, you're native to the country, you get preferential treatment, is wrong. It's an ist, and they're going to use it like racist. I would so already.
So wait, native to the country means American?
Yes.
Right. So if you're an American,
yes,
and believe that that's important and a good thing.
YouTube already made the rule a year ago that if you disparage non-citizens for being not citizens, you will be banned.
But most importantly, he went on and he said all of these things, nativists, libertarians, are a threat to democracy and are insidious. Those are his exact inflammatory words that are extremely reckless, extremely dangerous, but also, most importantly, extremely untrue. When we talk about libertarians, what are they guilty of? Not liking the government, being unsuccessful in politics, having cruddy candidates, having some ideas about individual sovereignty and liberty. What are they guilty of? What do they do?
How do you lump a libertarian in with a fascist?
Yeah, when everything Well, again, this is another thing we need to realize here. This whole Democratic Party was built as a large hammer hitting nails. So if you're a hammer, everything's going to start looking like nails for you because that's your single duty. That's the main kind of apparatus. That's how the Democratic Party gained power in 2020. Let's be honest here. They took down a lot of people, and that's how they were able to step on them and get a step above everybody else. And they know that works. They know that this is going to be implemented even more before this, and it doesn't take a genius to see that the writing is on the wall, that we're going to see an expansion of this moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out, too, that this process started in the 60s when the Democrats made a very conscious decision to make themselves the party of everybody but the white guy, and to go against the white guys in the late 60s, 1968. If you want to learn more about this, check out Matt Stoller's book, Goliath. There's a whole big detailed section about the deliberate course of action that the Democrats took. And so the nail is white dudes, and the hammer is what now? The state and all the non-white dudes behind them.
The state,
And
the
that's-
CIA,
and-
the FBI.
And
Go
that's
ahead.
why when Alex was here, he said, I am a gorilla. But love yourself.
We can all
Well,
agree
because
with that.
the idea of that book was, the discussion we were having was that the establishment wants you to live in the wilderness. They want you to live, like we used to hundreds of years ago. And that was the general concept. To be completely honest, I think people would do well to get out into the wild.
I was going to say, that sounds like a
Right.
good
great.
prescription.
But the idea was like destroying modern civilization and technology because we're destructive. It reminds me of The Matrix when Agent Smith is like, humans are not animals. They're viruses. I'm not going to do the whole speech. But that's basically what he says, because animals, he says, build a natural equilibrium with their environment, whereas humans just reproduce, move around, and destroy like a virus. That's the same idea from, my understanding from that book. And so the idea is to get humans back into stability with the natural environment. And then that requires, the average person to give up this way of life. So now I think what we're seeing, especially with the Great Reset, especially with the Democratic politicians who have defied their own lockdown orders, the idea is if the rich people are to maintain their lifestyles, everyone else has to sacrifice but them. So that's what they want. That's where we're headed. All the climate change stuff, whatever. That's where we'll go. Yeah.
I read Ishmael. Am I supposed to talk about that right now?
Yeah,
it was
you
like
can.
it was
Go
like
on.
12 years ago. Ishmael's the book where the gorilla comes from. He's the gorilla is called
I see.
Ishmael
I
that
see.
Alex
Our mascot, yes.
mentioned. And in the book they talk about takers and leavers. Humans have kind of divided into these tribes of types of people. One is the takers, and that there's so many takers right now in the world that, and the leavers we've basically desecrated. I think they refer to like the Native Americans as leavers in a lot of ways, protecting the land, allowing. Although they were massacring buffalo and each other and eating each other, I mean, it was pretty vicious.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah.
Well
yeah.
then.
But the idea is
Good count.
to become
it's-
leavers and
it's-
and to give up our taking ways, and that I think has a lot of merit.
I get
That's
it.
the difference between being a producer and a consumer, I think.
Yeah. Leave the world a better place than how you found it.
The problem is I don't trust the people who are pushing this kind of garbage. And now we're getting it tenfold with Joe Biden. He's going in, Paris Climate Agreement, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so
Critical race theory.
even if you do think it's a good idea, you can really look askance at the people who are pushing it. People like, I don't know, Bill Gates or whoever, George Soros.
Bill Gates
Bad
pushing it
idea.
while at the same time acquiring every last piece of available
Yeah,
farmland
exactly.
in America.
Oh,
And now
basically.
he's the largest farm owner in all of the
Right.
United States.
I doubt that.
Wow.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
Monsanto, the man who bankrolled pretty much Monsanto with all the stock purchases, is now in control of the United States food supply in many ways.
But now, if you had all that money and you knew that we were going to print up trillions of dollars, what is the best thing to buy in that case?
Beachfront property, because of course there's climate change, and we have to worry about the rising ocean
right, yeah.
tides, as Bill Gates literally bought oceanfront property. So that tells you everything that we need to know
Indeed,
about
but
individuals
raw
like
land
that.
and farmland over time have tracked money supply pretty closely.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to be. He must think that there's a lot of inflation coming.
Oh yeah.
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 you
I'm
I wonder why.
Drink.
So here was the
Drink.
here was the joke I mentioned. So we have this from on Twitter from Balages. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Oh, Blasi.
It says
Yeah.
he tweeted up and to the right, and it's a picture of the M1 money stock
Yep.
skyrocketing.
Yep.
And y'all know how's that meme money printer go burr.
Yep.
You ready?
It's going burr for
You ready?
sure.
No, the money printer is going. Ah! I moved away from the mic because I
yes,
don't want to blow
thank
anyone's
you.
eardrums
Right
out.
thing.
Yeah, it's just
That's the sound I'm making.
you look at the M1 money stock, and it's just I'm imagining a man screaming at the top of his lungs.
Yeah.
Whoa, Jack,
So,
freaking out.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know though. People don't have money, right? So some people have mentioned maybe there wasn't enough money in circulation. And one of the issues is if people aren't working at all because of the COVID lockdown and they're desperate for any amount of money, then we might actually see deflation. The wealth will concentrate into the hands of the ultra rich, the politicians, the elites, and they'll hoard it. Then by holding onto it and strangling out the working people, a normal person who's like, I need $15 an hour might finally just break and say, give me 10. I don't care. I have nothing. And then you can get the same amount of labor from that person for cheaper because there's no money for them.
Not if the Democrats get their way. You won't be allowed to hire anybody for less than $15 an hour all across the country.
No. But think about it. What they're doing with money printing and that at the same time is tricking people into thinking they're getting more when they're not.
Correct.
Yeah.
So with the mass printing of money, the people then saying, I'll get $15 an hour. They're going to have the same buying power. Their lives will not improve.
If they even can get a job, even if they're valued at $10 or $12 an hour in terms of their utility.
Well, this is the thing. The job question is really, really big because when we have the lower skilled jobs being taken by immigrants, when we have the higher paid jobs being taken because of these visas that are going to be reintroduced, what jobs are left? None of them. And you would think, failing wages, huge healthcare costs, and the collapsing economy would be something worth noting and talking about. But sadly, this is something that hasn't been mentioned and talked about. I mean, we're talking about it, but not many people are, which is even more scary.
You know what's really crazy about this too? Take a look. We'll pull back up the M1 money stock. The real expansion of the money supply, it started after the financial crisis.
Yeah.
So when you look at this major sharp uptick, look at the angle from 2008 until 2020 before the major spike, and it was still rapidly increasing.
Right.
So I don't know exactly what we can expect. Some people have said the M1 money supply doesn't track perfectly with how the economy functions or anything like that. But I think you print all this money, then you get Joe Biden coming out saying, everyone gets a raise to $15 an hour. And then there's enough money in circulation to balance out that wage increase while not giving anyone an increase in buying power.
Yeah, the argument is that you would increase the GDP to debt ratio, which is what happened after World War II. They printed a ton of money at World War II, and then instead of paying back the debt, they just grew the GDP, the gross domestic product, so rapidly that the debt became negligible, and they never ended up paying it back.
But that's a healthy use of debt. If you can borrow money to grow your business, your enterprise, or whatever in such a way that it dwarfs the size of the debt, that's actually a healthy way of
And I've
doing
seen
it.
economists make the argument that that's what's going to happen now, but it doesn't seem like our GDP is going to be able to expand that quickly, and that we don't have the industry that we had in 1945.
How? With all the lockdowns and all the factories in China, how?
And that's-
Asset price inflation.
But that's why there are concerns about deflation. If people don't work, they don't have money, period, and they'll do anything, and they'll get desperate, and it can be like, whereas a normal person might be a middle manager at a paper company or a cracker factory, and they make $65,000 a year. You take away that job, their savings is drying up, and then you come to them and say, "I'll give you $1 to shine my shoe." They'll be like, "Thank you, sir." And that's how you knock people down.
Well, everything is becoming more and more digital, so the likelihood of that happening is less, in my opinion. But also, on the other hand, we are going through a national coin shortage.
Yeah, we
So and then there is a huge kind of larger kind of psychological push to make regular fiat notes something dirty, something that transmits diseases, something that we should stay away from. This push has been kind of happening for a while. It's kind of been put in overdrive with COVID. So there's a big push to promote a cashless society, which is another big agenda which could manipulate and control people very effectively.
And that's what I've been saying about Bitcoin for a long time. I that's why I'm surprised I didn't buy Bitcoin sooner. Because even when Bitcoin was at like $50, I was telling people that it was the perfect currency for the international elites who want to be able to track every exchange of currency around the world. It's a better technology, it's trackable, and you can secretly seize control very, very easily. It's called the 51% attack. And of course, the United States has enough money to do it. I should have bought right then because that's like kind of obvious. There was so much in the conspiracy world about a one world currency. I remember back in like the 2000s, people were talking about the Amero. Do you remember that, Luke?
Yes,
The
yes, the
Amero.
North American.
Amero.
I actually talked to the Mexican president about that, and
Really?
he was Vicente Fox, and he was
Yeah.
openly pushing for that.
Wow.
Now and I interviewed him after he was president. Now he's pushing for drug legalization. Very interesting guy. But Vicente
cool.
Fox was like, yes, we need a North American Union. We need one currency between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Of course, a lot of the Democrats promoted this larger idea because they also promoted the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They also promoted NAFTA. All of these larger deals, which of course help out multinational corporations and screw over the blue-collar worker. So imagine if Mexico was tied in with the United States and Canada economically, what kind of larger exploitation would actually happen by the big multinational powers?
They like being able to hire people in jurisdictions that don't have human rights laws. I remember when I first visited Canada and I was talking to a friend of mine. I think it's like 16 years ago or so. Wasn't it like for every $1 US you got 7 Canadian? Like the exchange rate was pretty wild. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who said that they loved it because Americans would jump the border and then go party and just spend money like crazy. And it was great. They could pay their rent very easily. It was harder to buy international products, but their base goods, their food, their shelter was very easily covered by Americans who would come and spend. Then when everything started to normalize, that stopped happening. And it became harder for a lot of people in the service industry to make good money because they didn't have the wealthy Americans coming and spending all that cash. And this was part of a conversation about economic normalization I was having with a friend. So when it comes to, and we've seen things like this in Europe, when it comes to trying to make everybody on the same standard, it's very, very difficult to do if it's done with a finger snap government proposal and they do it overnight. But that's why Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is so interesting. With this constant escalation of the currency that's driving up and up and up, it's getting everyone to be like, I want to do it. It's building confidence in it as a store of value. So people are buying in, they're buying other crypto, and it is creating a one world cashless society. We're on that path through cryptocurrency. Is that a good thing?
It could be used either way. We've seen a lot of foreign governments get into the Bitcoin game, whether it's China or even more recently Pakistan, deciding that they're going to be officially mining with Pakistani government money. So it could go in a way where it's used as the kind of one world currency that's a cashless grid, total control, lack of privacy coin initiative, or it could be used on the other hand to promote privacy with privacy coins like Monero that are out there, Zcash, that do try to hide transactions so people could still keep their privacy, which I think is important. It's a double-edged sword. It's just like the internet, and it all depends on the user base. What do you do with it? What do you incentivize? If you incentivize corporatist, globalist coins that work with the big banks, well, obviously those will prosper. If you incentivize privacy coins that prioritize your liberty and freedom, well, of course, those will prosper. So right now we're in the deciding phase of this larger cryptocurrency revolution that's unfolding right now that is still yet to be determined if it's going to be really good or really bad for personal freedoms.
Look at social media networks. It was really good for a while and then started to get really, really bad. And then the government realized, or I should say political establishment realized, oh no, we've lost control by giving the plebs the ability to communicate with each other. Quick, take it back.
Yep.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that little opening. There was a little opening, right? And that opening has allowed me to have a job, independent media organization, allowed you to have a job, allowed other people to have a voice. I don't know, Jack, about your personal kind of history, but
Same.
There was a moment where everything was like the Wild West. It was amazing. It was beautiful. Anything you saw was organic. It was real. It was genuine. It wasn't corporate. It wasn't fake. It wasn't talking points. It wasn't regurgitation of Disney bull crap shoved in your face.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.